All right, good afternoon and welcome. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally this channel gravitates more towards cityscapes, but today we're going to be doing a landscape. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up, it really helps get my content out to more people. And if by the end you really like what you see, consider subscribing. I'm going to be doing 3 to 4 videos a week, so stay tuned. All right. Normally we would be putting a reference photo here on the right side of the screen, but this is not based on any reference photo. This is going to be just a very generic landscape. And you can take the rules and I guess ideas that we go over today and apply them to any landscape scene you have in mind. So let's go ahead and get started. I've went ahead and sprayed my palette over here just to activate our paints. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to take some clean water and I'm going to wet down my sky here. I don't normally do this, but landscapes tend to be very bright, and with the sky we want to be really careful to not get it too dark, and so just pre-wetting the paper helps dilute any of the pigments and really keep things light. One thing I'm going to be careful of though is I'm not going to paint or get the roof of this house wet. That's almost going to be completely white. It's going to help kind of, I guess, glow against our background and foreground. I want to really create the idea that the roof of this building is very, very bright. All right. And again, I'm only going to come down kind of to this, I guess, edge of our horizon line here. I'm also, when we get down into our foreground, I'm going to be leaving the tops of our individuals white as well to help give the idea of sun reflecting off their heads and backs. So let's introduce a little color into our sky. I've got some lavender here, a little cobalt blue, and I want to keep it on the cooler side, but yeah, let's just do that. That looks okay. Put a little bit more blue down in there. And again, I'm being pretty loose with this. When you've got your sky already wet, you just want to let it run. You don't have to do too much. And again, I've just kind of barely put some color out there. Nothing too crazy. All right. Okay. Now, I'm going to be also adding some sort of a mountain or ridge here in the background. And I'm going to do that while this is still wet, but at the moment it's probably a little too wet, so we can test it. I'm going to have it be somewhat of a cool color. So I've got just a dirty palette square here. I'm going to pull some lavender over. And I can make a mark and we can see how much it runs. And actually, you know what? That's not all too bad. I'm going to want those fuzzy edges, so I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and introduce that. And again, I'm just going to be careful to avoid my figures here. All right, just adding that cool color there. Do the same thing over here. And yeah, it looks pretty good for now. I'm going to spray this paper just to keep it nice and wet. And I think we're going to start moving into our foreground here. Now our foreground is going to be very warm in color and light in tone. I'm just kind of drying up this bead here because I don't want it to run too far down into our foreground. I just want to keep it pretty bright. And I'm just going to move through the body there just to kind of finish that line. And maybe just add a little water in there. It was maybe a little bit too dark for my liking. Okay. All right. Let's move into our foreground here. I'm going to take this smaller brush and I'm going to pick up some pretty intense, it's burnt sienna light, a little yellow ochre. I think that's cad yellow. And a touch of cobalt blue. And we're going to start working through here. And I mentioned before, again, I'm going to be cutting around these figures we have here. And I'm moving my brush quickly. I'm leaving little areas of light. Later on, those are going to come back and help us. They could be roofs of other buildings in the distance. It could be all sorts of things. All right, I'm just going to take a step back. Again, let's wet our paper. And now I'm going to grab my larger brush here. Just dip in there. And again, we want this to be some pretty thick pigment moving through here, all right? I'm just being careful. I'm going to come back with my slightly smaller brush and trace around these figures we have here. Okay. Something like that. And just for perspective, I'm going to have some rows of, I guess, whatever crop this is. Again, there's no reference photo for this, but you can see I've drawn these lines, and these are going to be rows of, could be maybe strawberries, I don't know, whatever they're picking out here. And I want to leave some little specks of light on top of those rows, again, to give the idea that maybe the tops of the leaves on the bushes or shrubs or whatever are just catching a little bit of light. So I'm going to just work down. Again, I'm just kind of moving the brush in circles just on the very top of some of these rows. I'm going to move the brush just quickly there. I think that's probably a better way to get the impression I'm looking for. Now, let's come back with our big brush, and we're going to work in between them here. Okay, so I'm going to come through there. Yeah. Maybe do that. I'm going to try my best to leave that white on there, but it's going to be difficult, I think. Again, just working a little bit here. And do not be afraid to pick up some serious pigment here. The more pigment we can have against that cool sky, it's almost gonna create the idea that our foreground is I guess glowing, for lack of better words. It really can read nicely. All right. Okay, we got a couple of rows there. That's not too bad. And again, we're down closer to the bottom here, so I want it to be a little bit darker. I'm going to spray this again. Just keep it nice and wet. And let's add, I'm going to get some dark color here. Maybe warm it up a little bit compared to the our mountain we did back there. All right, let's see. I want to create the tops of what are going to be some trees just out beyond the field there. And again, this is kind of the fun thing with landscapes. You don't have to do a whole lot to create a realistic impression. We've got those 3 trees there. And maybe I'll do another one over here just to get a little symmetry. And we're going to add some darker kind of tree line stuff back there, but I just want to have some stuff kind of poking out into the sky there. I think that looks nice. And again, this is why we work it while it's still wet, you know. Watercolor is one of the few mediums where I didn't really have to paint that. I just kind of touched and let watercolor do its thing. If it was oil paint or acrylic, you know, I'd have to mix this exact color, take a brush and spread it out and smear it and do lots of different things. So we want to let watercolor do what it wants to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here. I'm mixing up some darker stuff, and this is also for me later so that I can see where my reference lines are. I'm just creating some more kind of directional lines. This is still really wet, just to help me later on. And again, you can see how much white space I've left in these rows here. I often see beginners cover everything up in one tone. And again, with watercolor, what we're looking for is that contrast. When we're working with a cityscape, we oftentimes will have these really dark buildings in the background that will help us cut out and silhouette our shapes. But In a field like this, the entire foreground is in light. So I'm not going to have these really dark shapes to help cut things out. So I've got to leave some of that white paper behind to get that same level of contrast. Now, I'm just taking a look here, and again, I'm pretty much done through here with our main idea, or I guess our largest shapes. I'm just kind of working through here and just trying to make things a little bit more just interesting. I'm just kind of working through. I don't really have any secret, or big goals at the moment. I'm just kind of looking and working my way through. I may start the shapes of some of these shrubs that are going to be in here by mixing up some really warm, fairly dark paint, very thick, just while this is still wet, just to kind of start getting the idea here. And I think we're going to do that. Again, as this gets further away, I want it to be less and less prominent. Yep, something like that. I want to try to leave somewhat of a gap in between these rows. I think I'm going to try to do some shadow work below the shrubs, just to indicate more and get some of that more contrast. And so I can't have them too close together, or else I'll run out of room. But again, I'm abstracting most of this. I'm not looking to paint individual leaves or anything like that. That's too much work, way too hard. And up top here, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I've got neutral tint here, and then these are these are Daniel Smith paints, but it's Joseph Z's neutral gray and warm gray there, just in case you're wondering. All right, and I'm just working through here. All right, we're starting to get that idea of what we're looking for, I think. All right, I'm just taking a quick look at this. If there's anything else I want to do before I let this dry. And I think we're pretty good. I think this is good. So we're going to let this dry, and I will be back shortly. All right, we're back. This is now completely dry, and we're going to start working on our second wash here. So spray a little water on the paper. Okay. And our trees did dry just a little lighter than I would have hoped, but that's okay. I'm not going to go back and mess with them. Lighter when you're in the distance or you're working with objects that are in the distance can oftentimes be better than too dark. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I've got to be really careful here because as we get closer and closer, our colors are going to get darker and darker. And so this again is still pretty far back on this tree line. I don't want to get too dark with it. I want to make sure I give myself room to have these front colors be darker than what's back there. So I'm just going to be very careful. But again, this is all going to be abstract. I'm going to paint around these figures. I'm just working my way along this tree line here. Maybe there's another, maybe there's some more trees or something here. I can just pick up a little paint and just, well, I don't really like that shape. Let's see, I'm going to dab that out. Got some warmer paint down there. And I'm going to work into our building over here. All right, picking those up. Cobalt Blue. All right, now I definitely want to keep that shape there. Let's warm it up a little bit though. Pull that underneath. Yeah, it's not too bad. And again, I'm trying to break this up a little bit. I don't want to just have, clean straight lines. Very rarely do clean straight lines exist in the natural world. So I'm trying to mix things up here, and I pulled in a little bit of a cooler color there. I'm just working around. Well, that's not too bad at the moment. Something I do want to do, though, I want to accentuate this roof here. I'm going to build up a larger area of woods here, I think. And I'm going to start it off like that. And then let's take our dry brush here, and we're going to pull up and push around some things. Yep. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I do wish, though, I lost a little bit of this roof here. I was not careful enough. I wanted to maintain this edge here, but I'm going to use my palette knife and try to scrape it in. All right. Now let's keep working here. Pull up some of my darker colors. I'm going to darken this in here just to give it a little more weight. And that'll pull down. And then I'm going to just dot the edge of this here. Again, as we get closer, things get darker, and so there would be a little bit of a darker, I guess, base to this tree line here. All right, so I'm just going to darken it just a little bit. All right, we're getting somewhere. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to just dab that a little bit. I'm not really trying to lighten the color here. I'm just trying to make sure I don't have just a solid line there for our tree line. It just looks a little unnatural. Now I'm going to grab some neutral tint, and we're just going to maybe darken up under some of the ridges here on our building. Again, while that is still wet, I'm hoping that will bleed down a little bit into the building. And let's do this. I'm going to scratch a little chimney or something on there. And I'll show you later, we can add some shadows off that. It's a really cool effect. If you don't have one, get yourself a palette brush. It is more useful than you would think for watercolor. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that so far. And again, there's a lot of just miscellaneous stuff going on here, but this is the background. I really don't want the eye to spend a whole lot of time back there. I'm okay with that. Let's move up here. I'm going to start building these kind of crop rows. I'm going to pull something pretty warm here. And I've got my dry brush, and I'm going to start just working through here a little bit. Trying to move the brush quickly. If there's too much paint on it, I'll run it once on this wood board to get some of it off. Okay. Let's keep working here. It's pretty dark. Again, this is very abstract. I'm just trying to get the impression of some dark rows here. I don't need to convey, what type of plants these are or anything like that. We just want a nice, clean impression. All right. I think that looks okay so far. All right, let's work down here, and I've got a little bit darker paint. We're closer to the bottom of our piece here, which in theory should be closest to the viewpoint. All right. All right, picking up some more yellow ochre, burnt sienna light. Yep. We're just working through here. All right. down here, I'm going to just kind of draw some lines, I think. All right, we're coming along here. Now I am just looking for some of these really large white areas and just trying to use that dark color to break them up a little bit. But overall, this is looking very nice. I'm going to do one nice line there. All right. Okay, we're coming along. So let's spray our paper. And let's work on these figures a little bit. Ooh, and you know what else? I may scratch in here. Oh, I'm wondering if I want to try to scratch in like some little fence posts here. I think that looks nice actually. Let's do that. Just the idea of, you know, it's something. Yeah. Okay. Do I want to run a line? Nah, we'll just keep it vertical. Okay. Let's work into these figures here. Now this is what should make this painting come to life, or hopefully should. Now I'm going to clean my brush. Let's go in, let's start with this figure here. I'm going to grab just some Chinese white, just pure white there, and pull that down. And then I'm going to add his head here. I'm just going to let that bleed down. And then I'm going to get some lavender and put that on him as well. Maybe that's a shirt of some kind. I'm going to grab some dark color for his base here, and he's just standing up over the crop there. Now this individual, they're kneeling down. Maybe that other guy's taking a break. Let's do a little bit of yellow here. And I want to keep the top of his back in the sun if I can. Maybe pull that down there. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. We're going to come back here in a minute. I'm going to darken up this figure. He got a little bit too watery. I want him to make more of an impact. All right, let's get these guys in the background here. I'm going to give this individual a jacket. Okay. Let's give this guy just a nice dark shirt. Yep. Maybe they're walking over. They're late. These guys have already started. Yep. And pull that down. That looks okay. I'm just kind of standing up, looking at our painting here. What do we want to add? What do we want to add? I definitely want some darker paint for this figure here. And I'm going to mix up a dark blue. Maybe he's got on some jeans or something. Okay, and I'm going to put also a hand here. And I did give them like these little buckets that are maybe for collecting whatever it is that they're picking. You know what? I've got this dark on here. This back house is still wet. I'm going to throw some windows on there. Yeah, this figure needs to be a lot stronger. I was really hoping it would be a very sort of powerful figure here. I'm picking up some of that dark paint. It's not too bad. this again. Oh, that's better. Let's pull some of that pure, that's just neutral tint I grabbed there. Just putting a little bit of hair on tops of these guys. Let's widen up his head a little bit. Looks a little strange. Yeah, that looks better. We're getting there. All right. What next? What next? You know what? I'm going to give him, I'm going to stick a hand there as well. And he did have the same kind of bucket here on his arm. I'll just do it like that. And again, I'm just trying to give the briefest of impressions that, you know, he's got something in his arm there. Maybe I'll take some of this paint we've got and kind of accent these vertical lines that we've put in, just to make them stick out a little bit more. Okay. All right. And again, we're getting closer. We're not quite there. Definitely looks better once we added those figures in. I'm going to scratch out some windows where I put those dark marks there. Maybe a door of some kind. Okay. What do we want to do next? What do we want to do next? I definitely need some solid dark shapes up here. We've got a lot of melted, kind of brushed around, but we need some dark, sharp contrast to make this thing come alive. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that. I had talked about adding some shadow on the side of these things, and it will need to be pretty cool to get that contrast I want. That's pretty blue. I'm wondering if we just go for that here. Let's start first. I'm going to have the sun coming left to right. Let's put some shadows on these poles and see how that looks first before we go crazy. And I can already tell you that looks pretty good, but it's going to dry lighter, and I need it to be a little bit stronger. I'll put some Cobalt Blue, some neutral tint, a little bit more blue. Again, I want to cool this down a good bit just to get that distinction that, you know, this is in fact a shadow. I think that'll help us. Let's see. Yeah, that looks okay, I think. Maybe put a little bit of a line there on the left side to say part of that pole's in shadow, part of it's not. And we'll definitely give these guys some shadows as well. So we've got some shadows working out there. That's not too bad. Let's give these guys, though, our front two for sure. They need something over there to let the viewer know that it's bright outside. I want to be, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a couple little blots there, and then I'm going to take this small brush and just kind of push it out so we can kind of see, you know, our main shape. But let's see here, this guy, he's got a long shadow there. Again, I'll draw some lines just to suggest some different things. Maybe these guys here have just got a little bit of dark underneath them. And that doesn't look too bad. I do think I do want to go along here and add a little bit of shadow work. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pull some of that blue, and again, I'm trying to keep it cool. And that coolness is what's going to help us say, hey, this is shadow. And I'm I'm just going to work that along the very base of our line here. And then I'm going to come back and pull some of that, that wet paint out towards the, I'll show you what I mean here. It's kind of hard to explain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little brush and to kind of mimic the idea that, you know, this is crops and it's not a clean shadow. I'm just dipping a little water and then I'm just kind of moving that brush along that edge there and just pulling some of that paint out. Yep. Right like that. Okay. That definitely looks better. I like the look of that shadows. I think it added some really nice contrast. All right. Let's see, what do we want to do next? I'm going to lighten that up just a touch back there. Oh, well, I've got this here. I had mentioned we scraped out that chimney there, so I'll put a line there to represent that shadow from our chimney. Or, I don't know what it could be. Maybe a little wind sock or something up there. Okay. Little shadow. Let's see if I can't get a better scratch there. That's okay. I'll come back with gouache and try to fix that a little bit. Now for our guys up front here, again, I do want them to be pretty powerful, so I'm just pulling some pure yellow ochre there, and then I'm darkening it up just a little bit. I think I'm going to darken this fellow on this side, right? Because if the sun's coming left to right, he would definitely be darker on that side. So I'm going to try to darken his right side and lighten that left side if I can. Pull down. Yeah, gets a little bit of a better idea, I think. I want to give him another hand, maybe? Well, he did lose his bucket, so I'll give him something. Okay. I think these two guys in the back are fine. Not a whole lot of detail with them. I'm going to darken this guy's hand up, though. Or, I don't know what that could be. All right, what else? I think we're coming along pretty good here. What I may do, or what I will do, is I'm going to add some vertical lines back through here. I may do just a little bit more darkening with our tree line. I've got a completely dry flat brush here. I may just come through with a little bit of some darker paint. Just darken up the bottom of that tree line. Not too much, but just a little bit. Okay. All right, taking a look. I think we're okay for now. The only thing I think I want to do, I don't want to mess with it too much after this, but I think this shadow looks really good. These ones down here, not as much. I'm going to just go back in, just add a little bit more to them. I got to be careful because I don't want it to be such a different color compared to what was over there. But again, I do think that contrast of the shadow, it looks really, really nice. Again, those are just those vertical poles there. All right, let's come through here and let's just work that shadow a little bit. Same thing here. Same thing there. All right, I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to add our gouache highlights and final details, and I think we're going to be done. All right, we're back. We're going to be finishing this painting up. The only thing I want to do first is I still think, and I hate to keep touching it, but this front individual, it just needs to be a little stronger. I'm going to mix up some dark lavender and just come in here one last time and try to bolden that shape up a little bit. A little bit darker towards the bottom here, and I think that should help us. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay, let's add some highlights and see if there's anything else we want to do. So I've got some white titanium gouache here, just to help us out. Let's see, I'm going to add, and I tried, if you remember in the beginning, we did cut around these guys, so hopefully I don't have to add too much gouache. Yeah. Just trying to isolate them from the dark behind them, because they are a very similar tone. And we may be able to put better edge on this roof there. I think that looks better, although that angle's a little bit low. Okay. That looks better. Now, I do want to put, though, maybe just the top of these poles. Just put a little dollop on them. Not all of them, but maybe these closest ones. And then maybe on the very closest ones, pull a white line or two just to... Oops, that one's a little strong, but that's okay. Just to really give the idea that those are some vertical poles. And we're about done here. One thing I do want to add, and it is a bit of a risk, but I want to take, I'm very, very tempted to, I just want to see what some pure yellow ochre looks like on here, just to add some more color to our crop here, just because it got a little dark and muddy on top of the crop. So I'm going to add in some yellow ochre there. It almost looks like could be flowers or something. I don't know what this crop is, but that's okay. I don't think, you know, as artists we don't always have to be literal with everything we do. I'm about done here. I'm going to add just some vertical lines on these windows back here. And I think I like that door darker. Yeah. Just fiddling now. Probably shouldn't have even touched that. It's always hard when you get to the end of a painting, you know, where do you stop? So, but I think we're pretty good here. The only thing I may draw, I wanted to put some type of a fence or paddock back here by this barn or house or whatever. I don't know what it is. It's all up to your imagination. Yep. And you know what? I think we are done with this. I think we're done. Let's peel the tape off. Let's take a look and see what did we do well, what did we do not so well. and kind of evaluate. Ooh, although I do need to sign it. That is always one of the most fun parts. All right, let's take that off. Oops. I've got this pencil super glued to my wooden board here. It's what holds up my palette. All right, let me sign this. And as always, all of these little demos I do, there is a store in the description where you can, if there's one of them you really like, you can buy them. I don't sell them for very much, but they can also be useful for giving you something to paint off of. All right. Man, you can hardly see my signature. That's okay. All right, let's get that last part off. What did we do well? What did we not do so well? Honestly, I was pretty worried about this painting in the middle. Every painting has somewhat of a, I guess, like an ugly stage, and you just got to kind of push through and trust that it's gonna be okay. You got to trust the process. Things we could have done better on. I think that I could have cleaned my rows up a little bit more. I ended up really liking this shadow contrast on the light gaps between the rows. And so I wish that maybe I would have been a little more linear and careful with the gaps between these rows. I think I could have made it a little bit cleaner. I also think that these poles, they turned out okay. I don't know if from the beginning it would have been better though, when I first started making these, to instead of scratching them, to paint them in with dry brush with this this little brush here, just to add some more contrasting dark shapes to the front of the painting here, because our really contrasting shapes are our figures over here, and I guess the white of this barn. I mean, those are the shapes that stick out the most, so it would have been, I think, nice to have those vertical lines. Things I like our figures here. I think our figures look great. I like this guy squatting down and this guy's standing up taking a break. One last thing is we did paint that kind of hill or ridge in the background, but it's almost completely covered by the tree line now, so I probably should have started that a lot higher. But again, you know, that's okay. There's no reference photo for this. We're just kind of painting a basic farm-ish scene. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing, and yeah, keep on painting.